It's a brand new season for the Vancouver Blizzard, and we are hunting for our first title after coming so close last season. We're going to be playing our starters quite a few minutes in this new season. Every starter playing at least 32. I think everybody's earned that here in the starting lineup. We have a really strong group of 5 that start for us. Off the bench, we'll have Max Christie in that 6-man spot, Leonard Miller in that 7th, and Robin 16 minutes off the game. I'd be ecstatic if he could give us 16 points in those minutes. And then finally, at the backup center spot for the Blizzard, it will be Andre Hardy to start the season. My reasoning is really kind of what I talked about in the offseason, that we're in a new phase with the Blizzard where money is starting to become something to consider. Victor Jackson being 4 overall higher, I think, is going to cause him to want more money in a second contract. And ultimately, I thought it was really close between these two players, and despite the 4 overall gap. And so I'll take the player that's likely going to be willing to stay onto the team for cheaper. I also just like the fit better. The interior defense being higher is a big selling point for Harding. He's also a better 3-point shooter, which can help space the floor because he's going to be on the floor a lot with Saramago. And so I think that puts Victor Jackson on the trade block for this season. 81 overall. I don't think he's going to be happy getting 0 minutes per game. And the best way to get cheap talent once we start paying all our players, we already started with Saramago and Mike McKnight last offseason. We're going to have to pay Ellis this upcoming offseason. Best way to do that is through the draft. And so if we can get some draft capital back for Victor Jackson, I think that would be a smart way for this team to go. There are going to be some that probably would want us to put some minutes in for Thiago Saramago, who of course we just drafted. I just think for a team that is hunting for a title this year, I don't know if it's really worth it. Yeah, I know we could just do it in the regular season and then bench him come playoff time, but I kind of want that number 1 seed as well. So I just want to play the best possible lineup, and I don't think anybody here really is getting more minutes than they deserve. You could, give Garrett 28, I guess, and then maybe Christie 20, and then that could fit in 8 minutes for Saramago. In the case of an injury, he's kind of the next man up, though, so I don't imagine everybody's going to play all 82 games, and so any sort of injury to any one of our wings will put Saramago on the court. He's just not going to be, a regular rotation. Now for some mentorships, we're going to have Mo Wagner for Michael Graham. He has a few badges that he'll be teaching him that I think will be really nice, helping Graham become a more efficient scorer. And then we also have one for Rudolph Garrett, Derek White here. Helping him become a better catch and shoot player, a little bit better on the handle for his drive attempts. And then a nice defender who's going to be tough to move off his spots. We have Derek White for 2 years. I really hope he doesn't retire in this offseason, because I'd love to have 2 years worth of mentorship for Rudolph Garrett with Derek White, because I think there are a lot of badges to choose from. This is actually pretty hard. Oftentimes it's easy for me to find the badges I want, but there are so many badges that Derek White could be teaching Rudolph Garrett, and these are the 3 that I have chosen. Now it is officially time to welcome you into opening night of Year 6. The Vancouver Blizzard are title favorites this season. It's time to see if we can make it to the finals for our first time, and it starts here with Game 1. Now, I'm going to be using this opening night game as an experiment here, as another potential way to present playoff games. And so that's probably going to result in a little bit of a shorter episode, because one of the goals of the way I want to present playoff series is to make it not be a 4-hour episode like the Western Conference Finals were last year. And it's going to be kind of similar to the way I presented the conference finals, just with the goal of making it take up a lot less time, where we'll be watching roughly half of this ball game, and I'll be showing you like 90% of the possessions. I'll be removing some, you know, maybe if there's a offensive 3 seconds or a late shot clock heave or something like that. Some of the possessions that don't really tell you much about the game overall. But kind of editing out kind of the setup between possessions, whereas that's what I didn't do in the Spurs game. I commentated on it live, and there was no editing at all, which I think ended up hurting both the time it took to present that playoff series, as well as just kind of the video quality in general. Here, you're just seeing the action, and, you know, as much as I want to present the playoffs in a manner that saves me some time, I am also, more than anything else, committed to continuing to present high quality content on the channel. That's the best way for a channel to grow, is for me to actually present quality content to you guys. So you'll have to let me know at the end of this game if you think that this could be a nice way to show playoff matchups for the future. And one other thing I think that's going to be changing about the way I present the playoffs. I know we're in opening night, and I'm already talking about the playoffs, but at this point, I think it's pretty clear that the playoffs are the biggest portion of this series, and it's the one thing in this Vancouver franchise that has continued to vex me, and I don't want to admit defeat just yet. As we hop now here into the second quarter, I don't think I'm going to be presenting an entire playoff series in one episode anymore. I just don't think there's a way that combines high quality video without it being just too long. And so my plan for the playoffs is to have the first episode of a series be game 1 until the first elimination game. And the reason I want to do that is because I don't like when the length of an episode gives you context clues as to who won a certain game. For example, if it's game 6 and there's only 10 minutes left on the video and we're up 3-2, that's a pretty good context clue that the Vancouver Blizzard are going to win that game, right? Because I'm not going to fit a game 6 and a game 7 both into 10 minutes. And so, in an effort to kind of avoid spoilers that way through episode length, I'm going to go through game 1 through a elimination game in one episode, and then each elimination game is going to have its own episode after that. But rather than releasing it every other day like I usually do, when, you know, I actually have time to release every other day in a week, those games are going to be coming out every single day once I get to past, you know, that first episode, because that first episode will probably take me a little while to edit. It'll be at least 4 games, potentially up to a maximum of, it could go all the way to game 6 before you get an elimination game in a series. But the episodes after that will not take me very long to do, so I could probably release them every day, and that kind of eliminates, I think, the problem that I had that made me want to release entire playoff series in one episode originally with this game, is where last year I felt like the playoffs were taking too much time to present in real time. I think this way might be the best compromise. And so that's kind of my thought process here. We've gone through nearly the first half of the gameplay portion of me just kind of explaining my thought process there. And I'm hoping that this can finally be the way to present the playoffs in a manner that I can like the quality of content that I'm putting out there and not maybe get annoyed at how long it takes me to do so. So we'll see if that ends up being the case once we get to the playoffs, because I'm pretty sure that the Vancouver Blizzard are going to make it there this year. There is still the question of if both the Sonics and the Blizzard make the playoffs, what do we do? I think that's a problem for maybe another day here. Vancouver building themselves a pretty good lead here in the first half. Now, this is a matchup of the two 1 seeds from last year, but Vancouver goes on a little bit of a run here in the second quarter. The Pistons would trim it back down to 10 by halftime here as we look at the halftime stats. Clayton Rodman would actually lead us in scoring. We didn't see a lot of his three-point shooting just by the nature of how I presented this game. But 11 points at half, 3 threes all in the first quarter for Clayton Rodman. And just our star players not really shooting that well. Detroit, and specifically Taribo Udo here, who is matched up on Saramago, has done a good job of forcing him to be a jump shooter, but that's a really nice move there. We don't see Mago really pull that move out of the bag much. I think I've only seen it a handful of times this entire series, but it's a really nice move. Gets him a basket there. Vancouver holds a 7-point lead here. Step back for Rudolph Garrett. Hoping for a little bit more efficiency from him come playoff time this year. Hoping the badges can help him out. Only went up a few overall, but we know how impactful badges can be. Now, he didn't get set shot specialist as Cade just posterizes Albert Ellis there on the cut, which means I think he could still maybe struggle this year while he's learning that badge from Derek White. But just hoping for some sort of improvement because we certainly need him in the playoffs. We've been a team that has scored a lot in regular season and then kind of slowed down in the playoffs once teams have a chance to, play us 4, 5, 6, 7 times in a row and key in on stopping Ayrton Saramago. And it's going to be Albert Ellis and it's going to be Rudolph Garrett as our shot creators after Saramago that need to step up. It's been for the entire series, really our biggest problem is who can create shots when Saramago isn't able to cook. And honestly, Taribo Udo has done a pretty nice job on Saramago in this game. Not only pretty much turning him into a jump shooter for the most part, but also making those jump shots pretty difficult on our reigning MVP. Rudolph Garrett has been our best player at getting to the line so far on opening night. No free throws so far for Ayrton Saramago, who is usually somebody that gets a decent amount. Good contest there to force the Rudolph Garrett miss. Pistons have Wall in the corner, who swings it out to Man, but some nice defense there on that contest. Vancouver running it the other way, and Graham finds Ellis, a good pass. And that'll force a Detroit timeout here. The lead has swelled back up to 14 points until that Sar Thompson corner three. Just way too easy of a look to give him. Not sure how much his shooting has developed in this series, to be honest, so it might not. There's a chance, it's not a bad idea to leave him open, but you don't love giving up wide open corner threes. That's for sure. Andre Hardy commits a foul there on the drive. Getting Detroit back within a single-digit ball game here. Turnaround shot by Saramago, and turns out Taribo Udo might just be really good at defense. Might be another Saramago stopper that we have to add to the list with Alexander Sarr. As we head into the fourth here, Vancouver has a 13-point lead, and Saramago makes a nice pass into the corner, and it's this time we get the wide open corner three. Max Christie makes the most of his opportunity. Saramago went for the steal and left Udo wide open for a jumper. I've been impressed with Taribo Udo here. Looking at his player card, I wasn't all that convinced he was a great player, but he's made a ton of jumpers. And he's done a really nice job defending Saramago, which is one of the most difficult tasks in the NBA at this point. Graham comes and sets another pick here, this time for Albert Ellis. He makes the extra pass, and Saramago drills the corner three. The lead has ballooned back up to 17 now for the Blizzard, and the Pistons keep going to Isaac Okoro, and they're not really getting much in the way of good results going that way. Christie gets a screen, pumps and fires the three. He drills it. That'll make it a 20-point lead here in the fourth quarter, which when we get that, we head into the Simcast to finish the game out. And there you have it. The game ended up not taking all that much time. It was about 12 minutes of game time presenting it this way, and it took me roughly close to an hour, a little bit under an hour, to both edit and voice it over, which I think is pretty good. If you add the recording time as well, that's 2 hours per game, which that of course can add up in a 7-game series. But I think this is a method that I want to try come the playoffs, but if there are any ideas in the comment section, I'd love to see it as well. So it turns out Victor Jackson, because it was a team option rather than like an official signing, we can trade him here. And so I found a trade partner I liked with Philadelphia. I wanted to get a mentor guard that can hopefully get Clayton Rodman a badge or two. And the second best option was Peyton Pritchard. The best option was Trey Jones of the Spurs, but it just didn't make sense for San Antonio to trade Trey Jones. So we're going with the second best option here in Pritchard. And I just wanted Pritchard in a first was, for the most parts, the deal I was looking for. We could have done it if we switched our center mentor up to Isaiah Hartenstein, but I like the Wagner badges that we're getting, so I didn't want to do that. I really wanted to make this a simple trade, but Philly just kept trying to make it more and more complex. We couldn't technically trade our 32 first, so this one was illegal. I would have done it if it was illegal. We can trade our 2033 though, so to make this actually legal, we'll remove the 2032, add in the 2033, and then I like this trade. Ultimately, they would just do this, and at this point, I would accept the deal. They ended up switching this to a pick swap, which I didn't realize at the time. I didn't want this to be a swap, but that was the trade for Victor Jackson, which will end off this episode. We'll be back soon in the next. I'll see you then. Go Blizzard.